So a really common question that I've been seeing on the comment sections of all of my recent YouTube videos is to do more sales videos, right? I do a lot about booking meetings. I do obviously videos about getting client results, building your SMMA, building your agency to 10,000 a month, 100,000 a month, 50,000 a month, etc. But there's definitely a high demand for more sales videos. So I've listened to you guys. I read the comment sections. I reply to almost every comment that I get on my channel. And so in this video, I'm going to give you the exact sales structure that I personally use that enables me to close near 100% of sales calls that are qualified. Okay, if you're closing 100% of sales calls just altogether, you need to change up your approach, right? Not every single sales call that you have is going to be 100% qualified. Okay, so you shouldn't be signing those clients on board. And on top of that, not every single sales call you have is going to be able to afford your service and actually benefit from your service at the highest possible level, right? So you're not going to want to close 100% of the calls you have. However, you do want to close 100% of the calls that you have where the brand is perfect, everything is just in place. You know you can generate this specific brand, 50K a month, 100K a month, whatever it is. And so every one of those calls that you have, you want to close 100% of. And in this video, I'm going to give you the exact structure that you want to use on that sales call in order to close 100% of those clients. Now, as always, guys, just before we move forward, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hugely helps out with the YouTube algorithm, helps me push these videos out to more agency owners who are trying to grow their own SMMA. And with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's jump straight into the video. So there's really three overarching sections of a sales call, at least that I use, right? You guys know I only come on this channel and talk about what I do in my agency that I see works tremendously well for myself, right? And on my sales calls, that enables me to close 100% of those qualified prospects that I was referencing to at the start of the video. As I say, there's really three sections of the sales call that I promote a qualified prospect through. If the prospect isn't qualified for either of my offers, and I'm going to explain my offer structure here in a minute, if they're not qualified for either of those offers, then they don't get promoted past the first stage, right? So this is how you can always ensure that you're spending your time on a sales call with prospects who are actually going to be able to, move forward, afford your service, and they're going to be a good fit. Because if they're not, they don't exit the first stage. At that point, you just say, look, unfortunately, you're not a good fit because of X, Y, and Z. And always part by giving them some actionable insights, right? You don't want to just say, you're not a good fit, I hope you have a good day, right? Some people say you can do that, and technically you can, to be honest, because you don't owe them anything. However, just from like a moral standpoint, I always like to, give at least a couple actionable insights. And I always, what insights do I provide? Well, I always just look at giving them insights or actionable insights that they can implement in order for them to become a qualified client, right? If they're not qualified, it's probably because maybe they're on that 10K a month, 20K a month, maybe they don't have a solid sales process in place, maybe their advertising just is flopping really hard right now, or whatever the reason is, right? I always give them actionable insights, 3 or 4 actionable insights that they can implement in order to become a qualified client, right? Because then also by you doing that, what is going to happen by you doing that, I see this happen all the time, is they'll come back to you in 6, 7, 8 months, maybe even 3 months or whatever it is, and say, look, we actually implemented on what you went through, and we went from 10K a month to 70K a month. I want to hop on another call and see if we're a good fit. Usually they come back on the call and they are a good fit, and that's because you imparted that knowledge onto them when you left the call, right? However, if you was just to say, we're not a good fit, sorry, that's it, they're never going to come back, right? Because you're going to leave a bitter taste in their mouth and you didn't provide them any value. Obviously, always look for areas that you can just give value, just actionable value as well, not that hollow, like run Facebook ads or whatever, right? Actionable insights that's actually going to help them, right, scale up, because you then experience that effect in the back end when they come back to you, because they realize, oh my god, that knowledge that he gave us on that call was tremendously helpful. And so imagine what it's going to be like to work with that person, right? So that's the first thing. Unqualified prospects never ever get promoted through that first stage, right? Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. You're going to end up signing clients. Well done, you've signed a client, but they're not going to be qualified, which means you're not going to be able to get good results, which means you're just simply not going to be able to build them any noticeable amount, right? This is the biggest issue that I see in the SMMA industry. All these people are saying, sign clients, book more meetings, book 400 meetings a month, sign 9 clients a day. But the issue in a service-based business is that you need, especially in the e-commerce niche as well, majority of you watching this are going to be in the e-com niche, you have to be bringing clients on board where you can actually generate them at minimum. Ideally, in Centurion Agency, my high level program, we only sign clients on board where we can generate them a minimum of 50,000 a month return, right? And that's return on ad spend. That's not like revenue, that's purchase conversion value minus ad spend. That difference, right? The number has to be a minimum of 50,000 a month. That's how you can ramp your agency to 100K a month, which is what Centurion Agency basically does. Now on that, if you're interested in Centurion Agency and you're currently operating an agency that's around the 10,000 a month mark, ranging up to around the 30,000 a month mark and going as low as around 5,000 a month. If you're an agency owner in that range and you want to get to 100,000 a month, click the first link in the description. It's going to take you to a scheduling page where you can book in a Centurion Agency call with myself directly, and we'll walk through how to get you to 100,000 a month. Anyway, besides that point, in that program, as I say, we only bring clients on board where we can generate them a minimum of 50,000 a month difference. Only certain clients can warrant those numbers, right? You could be the best advertiser in the world, but if the brand itself just isn't qualified, doesn't have a good sales process, doesn't have a good product market fit, has no proof of concept, you're not going to be able to get them any noticeable results, right? You're not going to be able to generate them crazy numbers, which means you can't charge them a lot, which means you're wasting your time. So you don't want to promote clients through that or past that stage one if they're not qualified. So let's now have a look at each stage, right? Each section. As I mentioned at the start, there's 3 overarching sections, and within each section there's a certain goal that we want to achieve, and obviously that's then going to set us up for the third goal, which is obviously getting the close, right? So let's have a look at section 1. So section 1 is all about diagnosing the prospect, digging deep into their current situation. What have they got going on? This is how you can qualify the prospect. This is, each section has a lot of kind of sub goals that you want to achieve and things that it serves. So one of the main things is obviously qualifying the prospect, right? If their sales process is 0.2, they get like 100,000 visitors a month and their sales process is 0.2, that's not going to be a qualified prospect. Their sales process is fundamentally flawed, and probably, especially if they're running ads and they're targeting and whatnot, not too terrible, then it shows you that sales process is just never, ever going to work, right? There's something fundamentally flawed in there. So at that point, you'll just be pouring water into a bucket with a huge hole in it. It's not going to do anything. It's just useless, right? And that's obviously referencing your advertising. You're going to be pushing all this traffic to a site that's got a bunch of holes in it. The traffic's never going to convert, means your ads are never going to convert, which means obviously you can't charge them a healthy amount per month, ideally 5,000 a month plus, right? So that's the first thing that section 1 does. It enables you to dig deep into the current prospect situation, and then from that data that you've gathered, right, you're going to then be able to basically pick, in my case, I pick one of 3 routes that I'm going to go down for the rest of the call. Route 1 is a done for you, for them to be a done for you client. This is when the prospect is just perfectly qualified. Everything's in place. I can see black and white exactly where we can come in and just ramp up this particular client. So they're going to be a perfect fit for our done for you service. So then the rest of the call, I go down that route and I tailor everything down the done for you route. The second route at this point that I choose out of the 3, the second route that I sometimes can go down is the done with you, right? So there's DFY, DWY, obviously done for you, done with you. And so sometimes it's going to be a done with you route because the client just, for whatever reason, they're not a good fit for the done for you service. This can be a lack of funds. It can be logistical issues on their end. Sometimes clients actually prefer the done with you style because they actually want to bring an in-house media buyer on board. So it's more of like a consulting gig. So whatever the reason is, that's then when I'll go down that route. And again, the way that I depict what route I go down is via diagnosing their current situation, seeing where they're at and doing what's going to be best for the client, okay? And then obviously the third route, as I mentioned before, is that's where we just part ways because they're just not good for either of the offers that I run at Bites Consulting, okay? So that provides really the route that I'm gonna go down on the call by diagnosing their current situation, seeing where they're at and seeing what it is that they need in order to get to where they want to go. Now, if I can provide what they need, I'm going to go down the done for you or the done with you. If I can't provide what they need, then obviously, as I say, that's why I'm going to just end the call there and move on. Something else that this section does as well is it actually, like throughout the sales process, the sales call at this point, within the sales call, you always want to make sure that the client's subtly selling themselves, right? You always want to make sure that the client, as I say, is selling themselves in that they are realizing that they need you throughout the call. They've never thought about certain things in the certain ways that you're positioning it. And that then fuels the idea that, oh my God, actually, yeah, we really need you. The best way to do that is asking questions. When you ask questions to the client, they start to think about things and they're like, oh yeah, actually no, we don't have anything like that in place, or no, we don't do that, or no, that's something that we've not thought about, or whatever it is. And so again, what this does is it enables the prospect to essentially sell themselves. If you're asking them, what's your AOV, what's your current CPA in your ads manager, and what's your ideal CPA, if they've not got the answers to those questions, they're going to realize, wow, we actually don't have anything in place. Wow, we actually don't have any sort of solidified marketing strategy in place. This is probably why we're not getting where we want to go, right? So it starts the process of them subtly selling themselves. So then at the end, when you actually sell them, quote unquote, and you pitch your offer, they've already sold themselves. They're already sold at that point. So you just close the deal. It's super simple at that point. So that's the main things that we want to get out of section 1. And so moving on to section 2, if the prospect has successfully been promoted through section 1, they're a good fit. I'm not going to tailor this video down each specific route, right? Whether you go down the done for you or you go down the done with you. That's a slightly more high level stuff that we go through in Centurion Agency. But if overall the prospect is qualified for a service that you offer, right, for an offer that you have, then you're going to move on to section 2. Now section 2 is one of the most important parts of the call. Reason being is because essentially what you go through in section 2 is what the prospect is going to buy at the end of it. This is your product. You don't focus on features or anything like that. You always want to be tailoring things to the outcomes that what you do produces, because to be honest, that's what they're buying. And that's really, as I say, what we go through in section 2. And so section 2 is about the underlying thesis and the technical vehicle. Okay, so the underlying thesis is what you start with. And this is, what do you do? Right? Do you run Google ads? Do you run YouTube ads? Do you run Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Snapchat ads, TikTok ads? Are you a CRO agency? Are you a content, whatever service that you offer, that's your underlying thesis. And you need to back up that underlying thesis with why that particular route that you leverage, or the particular medium that you leverage, why that's so much better than everything else in the market. That's the underlying thesis. Because if the prospect doesn't agree to that underlying thesis, to that main medium that you're using, then you going deep into that medium, you going technical into that medium is going to be irrelevant, because they don't buy into the underlying thesis, right? If, for example, if you run YouTube ads and the structure of the campaigns that you create in YouTube, in the YouTube ads manager, and all that stuff, all that technical stuff doesn't matter if they don't buy into the underlying thesis that YouTube ads is the best way to grow an e-com brand or an info product brand or whatever it is, right? Whatever services that you offer. See what I mean? So that's why, first of all, before you dive into kind of how you get results with the mediums that you use, you need to ensure that the prospect buys into the underlying thesis. That being your service, okay? Like what it is that you physically offer. So you want to do that first. Get them to buy into the underlying thesis. So when you start this process of detailing your underlying thesis, why it works so well and whatnot, always back it up with proof. Okay, back it up with case studies, back it up with, factual evidence. Because when you back up your claims with factual evidence, with case studies, with just black and white proof that this stuff works, right? And this ties into your underlying thesis as well as the technical vehicle that I'm going to get onto here in a minute. When you back it up, as I say, with factual evidence, it enables the prospect to not physically be able to rebut anything. That meaning that they're claiming that the evidence that you're showing is false, right? If you just say YouTube ads is the best, well, it leaves so many areas for them to come in and just basically rebut everything and claim that what you're saying is false. But when you show them black and white, just facts, this is the number one way to do it. We've done it with this client, this brand's done this, this brand's done that, all using your underlying thesis, they can't argue that, because it's just pure cold facts, okay? So you want to be always doing that throughout your sales call. So now that they've bought into your underlying thesis, now you can go a bit deeper into how you actually get results, right? Because they fundamentally believe that now this is the best way to grow. So now you want to show them, okay, how do we use that medium to grow? Just telling a client that YouTube ads is the best is not enough. They need to buy into the fact that YouTube ads is the best to scale an e-com brand or whatever. By the way, I'm just using arbitrary examples, right? So don't think that YouTube ads is actually the best and you need to change to YouTube ads. However, YouTube ads and Google ads is actually something that we're stepping into at Bax Consulting. And again, if you're in Centurion Agency, you guys are going to get all that advertising stuff as well that we're using for our own agency to generate appointments, right? Like run ads for the agency, using YouTube ads and Google ads, and also for clients as well. Anyway, besides the point, right? This is just an arbitrary example. So as I say, now that they've bought into YouTube ads, now we can go deeper into how we use YouTube ads to get results. And then at that point, you want to ensure that they buy into the technical vehicle, because again, they're selling themselves, right? If you ensure that they've bought into how you go about things, your underlying thesis, how you get results, they're like, oh yeah, I can see how you can get results. Yes, I do understand and I do realize that this is the number one way to grow, and this is how you do it. Yeah, I can 100% see that. That makes total sense. If they buy in like that, when it comes to pitching your offer and closing the deal, they're already bought in. They see black and white. Yes, this is how I can get to 100,000 a month or 200 or a million a month or whatever it is that they want to hit, right? And again, as I said before, always focus on outcomes. Go deep, you can go technical, but tie that to an outcome, right? So tie what you're going through to the outcome that it's going to produce and ensure that that outcome ties in to what they actually want to get to in their business, okay? This again is why section 1 is super important, because you dig deep into why are you on this call? What do you want to do? What do you want to get to? If they want to get to 500 a month, right? 500,000 a month, dig deep into your underlying thesis, your technical vehicle, ensure that they buy into it, right? Detail the outcomes that those things can produce, right? And tie that to the fact that this is going to enable them to get to 500,000 a month. Obviously ensure that it actually can get them to 500,000 a month. And as I say, that's why you obviously depict what route you go down at the start, because if it can't reach their goals, then there's no point bringing them on as a client, right? But if it can, then you always want to be tying it to the outcome that they want to hit. So then again, at the end of the call, it's like, well, you're going to pay us 20,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is, but we're going to get you to 100,000 a month. And you can see that we can get you to 100,000 a month because they, and they can see because they've bought into your underlying thesis and your vehicle. See how it all stacks up and it all has just one end goal, right? We're going to one North Star of getting the goal of getting the close, right? So this is how everything kind of, as I say, stacks on top of each other and just sets you up for a very, very easy close. So now that they've bought into both your underlying thesis and your technical vehicle, that's the goal of section 2, is that they buy into those two things. Now that they've bought into those two things, now you can just transition straight to section 3, which is basically closing the prospect. So super important note on section 3 on closing the prospect overall. It's to set an anchor. Okay, this is like the most impactful thing that I've ever implemented into my sales calls, creating an anchor. Because one thing you need to realize in any sales is that your price is relative to the anchor that you set. Right? If you say $500, right? If you say that most agencies out here are going to charge you $500, right? Or, we can invest $500 and get $1,000 back. The anchor that you're setting is, around the $500 to $1,000 mark. If you then go ahead and say that you are going to charge them $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month, then that $6,000 a month retainer is relative to the anchor that you've set. $500 a month or $1,000 a month. So then the 5 to 6,000, because it's relative to those smaller numbers, the 5 to 6,000 seems huge, right? It seems really expensive. Now, if you're using that same $5,000 to $6,000 retainer, right? It's the same number, but because it's relative to the anchor that you set, in this second situation, you set an anchor that's far above that, right? You set an anchor of $30,000. $40,000. Clients where you're bringing them in $100,000 a month return on ad spend, right? That's the anchor you set. Now the price that you say is relative to that bigger anchor. And so now the $5,000 to $6,000 service fee is exactly the same number. It just seems now so much more insignificant because it's relative to the anchor that you set. So that's vital, right? This is the most impactful thing that I've ever done. I do it for absolutely everything. Even like when we're charging clients performance only fees and whatnot, like I still set that anchor, which obviously then at that point makes the performance only fees that we do for certain clients just ridiculously, just a ridiculous no-brainer, right? But even if you're doing, like I say, sometimes we'll do a one-off funnel build, we'll do, consulting, like I said before, like the 2 offers that we've got, like the done for you and the done with you. The done with you is always a $5,000, $10,000, maybe even $15,000 flat fee. So I use that, right? I set the anchor because I know that the price is relative to the anchor. Super, super, super important stuff. Always remember that for your closing. So now that you've set your anchor, you can now state your offer. This offer is going to be relative to the anchor that you set, okay? So now that as I say, you set your anchor, we can state the offer. Don't show your cards on the first offer, or I should say, don't show all of your cards on that first offer. That first offer is going to be your most lucrative offer, okay? So make sure that you've got room to move. Don't show all your cards and make sure it's your most lucrative offer that you can make, whilst it's still going to make sense for the client. Because if you go through the sales process correctly, majority of clients are going to snap you up on that first offer, and that offer is your most lucrative, right? So make sure though, as I say, most clients are probably going to like close on that first offer. So you don't want to make it where it's like just doesn't make sense and the client's always going to be in the red because they've snapped you up on that first offer. So make sure that they can still profit, but make sure it's not your minimum, because then you've got nowhere to move. You can't go anywhere at that point. And then again, once you've stated your offer and whatnot, there may be a bit of pushback from the client. If there is, follow up with case studies, drill home the point that it's just, this is ridiculous, right? Look, we generate this client this much, this, right? This is our track record. Again, leave no possibility for them to rebut anything that you say. Provide cold, hard evidence. And then again, that's just going to make your your offer seems so much more attractive, right? If you're selling them a $5,000, I know in the title of this video I say how to sign 5,000 monthly clients, but to be honest, you can use this to sign 7,000 monthly clients, 10,000 monthly clients and whatnot. If you, again, are showing client case studies and whatnot who are paying 7,000 a month, 8,000 a month, and you're generating them 100,000 a month profit, 200,000 a month profit, right? I mean, it's just a no-brainer. So again, drill in those case studies and justify your price. Again, if you're obviously in Centurion Agency, you get all of my calculators and my formulas and whatnot to use in this section where you justify your price, right? Why are you charging $7,000? How am I going to be profitable with paying you 7,000 a month, right? Build formulas, build calculators for that, and pull it up on your screen on the sales call. I do this on every single sales call. And I just prove to them, like, look, pay us X and we'll give you X times 2. We'll give you X times 3 back every single month. It just makes it an absolute no-brainer. And when you've got a formula, you've got a calculator that just proves that to the prospect. So most prospects are going to close instantly on that. When you justify your price, you back it up with just unequivocal proof. There's no possibility for them to really have any pushback, right? There's just no possibility because you backed up your numbers with just cold hard evidence. You've justified your price and whatnot. Most are just going to close them. There's going to be a slither, right? There's always going to be a slither who there's just more pushback for some reason. They're just whatever it is, right? And usually that's going to be because there's going to be a hole in your sales process. As I say, most clients, if you do this stuff correctly, they'll close on that first most lucrative offer. You don't even need to show case studies. You don't even need to justify your price. They'll close on that first offer. That's when everything is just 100% locked in. It's just perfect. And you'll get to that point, but obviously you're going to have to go through iterations and feedback loops to get to that point. So on that process, to get into that just perfected sales process, you're going to have pushback even once you've provided case studies, unequivocal proof, and you've justified your price. So at that point, you want to re-loop back to your original offer. So now you want to kind of show some more cards, okay? And what I mean by that is obviously that first offer one was your most lucrative. So now you can kind of go to your last offer that you can really do. So you want to lower it, and now the prospect's going to feel as though, okay, this is much better, or this is more what I was after, or whatever it is. Maybe they were only comfortable paying $3,500 a month instead of $5,000 a month, or maybe they're only comfortable paying $5,000 a month instead of $7,500 a month. Whatever it is, right? You unveil more cards at that point, you loop back and you go through that again. You back it up with case studies, justify the price even more, right? You just justified your price on a number that was even higher. So now that you've dropped it, they're going to be even more profitable. And at this point, they're going to close. If they don't close, they're never going to close, right? If they don't close at this point, there's either logistical issues where they physically can't move forward, but they shouldn't have got to that point because you should have kind of eked that out of them. You should have extrapolated that out of them before you got to this point, right? If there is logistical reasons as to why they physically cannot move forward. And if there's no logistical issues, they can move forward, but they're just not, then just move on, right? Then they're just never going to close. If you go through this closing sequence and they're still saying no, or they're still saying, nah, I don't like it or whatever, they're never going to close. And then again, after that call, obviously make sure that you're recording all of your calls. And after that call, go back through, because I'm sure you're going to have the odd client where they're just never going to close. They're just out there to waste your time. But if they're not going to close after that end sequence, there may be an issue, or you may have just messed up the sales process slightly. You didn't get them to buy into your thesis. For example, you may have missed the fact that you needed to ensure that they bought into your underlying thesis before you moved on. Maybe you forgot to do that. So they still don't believe that YouTube ads is the best way to go. They still deeply believe that Facebook ads is the best way to go. So they're going to pay you $5,000 a month to run YouTube ads because they don't believe that, right? So maybe you missed out the fact of ensuring that they bought into your underlying thesis, for example, or your technical vehicle, whatever it is, right? Go back through, perfect that sales process, get on more sales calls, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And you're going to get to a point where every single call, you're going to hit that most lucrative offer, number one, and you're just going to close. You're going to close. You're going to close. You're going to close. You don't even need to back up with case studies at the closing stage. Always back up throughout, right, your sales process with case studies and unequivocal proof and cold hard evidence. But in the sales process, you'll get to a point where you don't even need to. You don't even need to justify your price. You can kind of put any number on it, and because they're just so bought in, they know 110% that you can get them to where they want to go, right? Whether it's 100,000 a month, 500,000 a month, $1 million a month, as long as your price just isn't egregiously high for no reason. It's like 50,000 a month, right? As long as it's respectable, they're gonna close. Okay, now that's how you can close 100% of prospects who are qualified. Right? As I said before at the start of the video, it's probably one of the most important points of the video to ensure that you pick the correct route to go down. Don't sign clients on board who are unqualified, because not only do you not have the client's best interest at heart, which is something that I deeply recommend every agency owner should have, because even that alone is going to separate you from all the other agencies out there, because most of them don't have their client's deepest interest at heart. So not only is that going to result in you not having the client's best interest at heart, but also you can only charge them so much, and they're going to leave you a month later if you're not getting the results. So why go through all of that pain and wasted time when you could have put that same energy, those same amount of units of time into a prospect where you are going to actually generate 10,000 a month? It doesn't make any sense. So make sure you pick the right route to go down at the start of the call when you do that through the diagnosis phase. But yeah, those clients who are going to go down the done for you service, they're a perfect monthly client. You're going to close 100% of them if you implement on this process. So as I said at the start of the video, these concepts are much higher level than the usual stuff that I cover on the channel. Usually it's about how to get your first client or whatever. Obviously, I mean, this sales process is going to close you 15, 20 grand deals, right? It just is. There's no real limit to the numbers that you can slap on the end of these sales processes, as long as your actual service or the product, whatever it is that you're offering, is going to provide them, 3, 4, 5, 10x that initial investment. An initial investment, you can say 50K as long as it's going to bring them in a $250,000 or whatever it is, right? So it's a much higher level stuff. And this is exactly the stuff that I cover in Centurion Agency. In Centurion Agency, I've got an entire sales script. It's a ridiculous behemoth of a thing, right? And it follows this structure. This structure lightly discusses it. Obviously in CA, we go a lot deeper, and that's just in the sales section, right? It's an entire program. And that program takes you to 100,000 a month with your agency without like any sort of question, right? It's near impossible to not hit those numbers via implementing on what we go through in Centurion Agency. It's near impossible, right? I know it because I'm physically doing it right now, and it's absolutely wild. Students in there right now are just killing it. So if you're interested in joining Centurion Agency, as I said, book in your Centurion Agency call via the first link in the description. It's going to take you to a scheduler page. It's going to book in a call directly with myself. If your application looks like it's a good fit, I'll hop on a call with you and we'll diagnose where you're currently at within your agency right now. And look, I'm going to be honest, if I don't think that Centurion Agency can actually help you get to 50K a month, 100K a month, then I'm not going to enroll you as a student. It's just as simple as that. I only want to bring students on board inside of Centurion Agency who I know are going to give me the best case studies possible, right? It's just, it's just how it is. I want Centurion Agency to be the leading agency program in the space that takes agency owners from around the 10K a month mark to 100,000 a month. Now, if I enroll agencies who just aren't qualified, who, maybe the agency owners themselves just aren't, I know they're not going to put in the required work and whatnot, I'm not going to enroll them because they're not going to give me those case studies, right? So I'm only going to offer it to you if I can see that it's genuinely going to get you to 100,000 a month. And also in the call, and also on top of that, just within that initial first free call that, as I say, you can schedule in by clicking the first link in the description. I mean, I'll show you in there as well, just kind of how to get to 100,000 a month anyway, just step by step, just from that first call. And then obviously once you're inside Centurion Agency itself, I mean, you just literally have to click a few buttons, follow the process, follow what I say, and you'll be at that point anyway. So go ahead, book in that free call with myself, as I say, and we'll get you to 100,000 a month with your agency. And apart from that, I hope you found value in this video. As always, if you did, go ahead, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.